Welcome back to the Marine Corps Movie Minute, where we discuss the movies of the Marine Corps 1 minute at a time. It's Friday, and we've reached minute 78 of the fine classic movie Heartbreak Ridge. My name is Brian,
And I'm Jack.
and we're still here together. Just I already said this, discussing Heartbreak Ridge. Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe one day we'll get these intros down. Like snappy.
yeah, yeah. We just, yeah, Billy here. He said, yeah, Jack. Yeah, okay. Anyway, here's the movie.
I mean, I can't even get my name right from 1 minute. Well, 1 minute to the next.
Yeah, oh, fuck. Who am I today?
Which name am I using?
Yeah.
All right. Well, this minute picks up from last minute, as they all seem to do. So the minute begins with Stitch Jones and Sergeant Major Chuzu escorting Gunny Highway out of jail with a little help from Aggie, and it ends with the beginning of what it looks to be maybe a little reconciliation, or at least a heart to heart, a little more
Yeah.
honest conversation
Come to
between
Jesus. It looks like I come to Jesus.
Yeah, it looks like there's, some we're gonna talk.
Yeah.
Last minute on Wednesday, Sergeant Major Chuzu tells Gunny, no, I'm sorry. He did tell Gunny to get his ass up, but he commanded Stitch Jones to snap to it, Marine, and give me a hand, and he helps to help Gunny Highway out because, let's face it, Clint Eastwood's a big man, and Sergeant Chuzu, although probably a strong man in his own regards, is a much smaller guy than than Clint Eastwood,
Yeah.
and he's just stumbling drunk, so he's not helping.
Nobody signed Jones out of
No,
jail.
yeah, that's
He
exactly
just,
it. So
he just walked out of prison or out of.
he, he literally just walked out of prison. That's exactly it. Now, even as a kid, this is something my father and I used to joke about. We're like, who posted his bail? We get flat out Aggie, Marsha Mason, holding papers saying, I posted his bail.
Mm.
And she's talking about, Gunny Highway. It's Jones as he's walking out because you remember he told Sergeant Major last minute that he said, Highway knows I'm innocent. He said, we're like brothers, we're a team. And Suchuzu says, like,
My
like my grandma or my
yeah,
grandmother, but I don't know what the hell that means.
yeah, yeah.
I really have no idea what he's talking about. So
I think he's just calling him on his bullshit. He's like, "Yeah, you're full of shit."
yeah, I mean, probably.
Jones just knows Sergeant Major is Sergeant Major. He doesn't. I don't think he knows that Gunny Highway and Sergeant Major Chuzu have as long a history together as they do.
Yeah, I believe you're correct. He probably doesn't realize that Sergeant Major is a lot more aware, and like he's not going to pull one over on him. He knows, like you said, he knows he's full of shit.
Yeah,
He's worldly. he's
yeah.
he's he's not a pushover.
No.
So, but you are 100% correct. Who the hell bailed Jones out? He just kind of goes with him in the conflict. So
Well,
now he's gonna have an arrest warrant out, warrant out for his arrest.
yeah.
For like,
For escaping, for flying the coop.
and you notice too, he's got his jacket back when they leave the jail and they walk into the Globe and Anchor bar.
Yeah, what the fuck? I don't know. Maybe somebody did post his bail. Maybe he's like, all right, like, I'm just gonna go take care of this. I don't know. I don't know.
I didn't bring it up at all last minute, but I was almost trying to make the connection. I'm like, okay, so I'm like, do you think somebody called like Sergeant Major? Somebody was like, hey, one of your Marines is down here in jail, so like Sergeant Major shows up, and it's for Jones and not. But no, he clearly was there for Tom Highway. Like
Yep.
they knew he was. I'm guessing he got a heads up, like we said last minute. That guy, that cop's a friend with Sergeant Major. He knows him somehow. Hey, your
Yeah.
boy. Hey, guess what? Your boy Tom Highway, because he's known to do this, is here in our jail. I wonder if even Aggie, like Chuzu called Aggie, or probably honestly, probably Little Mary.
You know what? That might have been it. Little Mary probably called and got a hold of those two. But
Yeah,
let's be honest. That situation, it wouldn't be too much different than you and Rachel coming to fucking get me out of the pokey. It'd be
yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah,
It,
true.
it wouldn't be like it wouldn't be that kind of some of a weird deal. It's probably because he was there for whatever reason. Maybe he just called little Mary and she set everything up. Looked
Yeah.
like she had coffee ready.
Yeah, because well, that's the thing. They walk they walk into the Globe and Anchor, all four of them, and Highway's clearly still feeling the effects of being drunk, and he's like holding his nose, and he's kind of steadying himself on the jukebox, if you notice.
Yeah,
And little Mary says, "Oh shit,"
yeah,
like she knows. And then Aggie asks for coffee. So yeah,
yeah.
it's already ready. She's pouring a cup of coffee for Jones and
Choosing.
Chuzu, yeah. And she's none for me, man, blah blah blah. But now Chuzu says something about Little Mary here in this minute, and I didn't quite catch it again. He said, I always wanted to check this place out or whatever. And he said, Little Mary's been serving Marines for 3 years or 3 wars. Is that what he said? Or since the Korean War? I couldn't quite catch what he said. Did you?
Um, no, I didn't either. Yeah, he said something. It was kind of under his breath. What I noticed was Stitch's admiration for the place.
Yeah.
Like, just a lot of history. Like, that's the first time that you see like his appreciation for the Marine Corps.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, because he's like, "I always wanna check this place out." And I would say, like, even just personally for me, you know, there there's times where you're just like, especially when you're you're like, "Man, F all this."
Y-
Like, it's just
Yeah,
it's bullshit. All this play war is bullshit, like they've said.
right,
But when you really look at, like a place like this that's showing keeping the honor and their tradition, and when you really step back and think about it, you're like, "Man, it's pretty impressive thing." Like, like for me, I always the fact that the Marines are such a small service compared to the rest. Like
right.
there's not that many people, relatively speaking. I mean, have been Marines, and then you hear about the stories and all that, and it's a lot to take in, and it's
Yeah, it's a lot to live up to.
yeah, and I mean, as person, I'm a big fan of history and museums and stuff like this, and you got to think about it. This is like I mean, it's a bar for sure, but it's kind of a shrine to the Marine Corps. And
Yep.
I mean, right, I mean, I got the minute pause because I wanted to hear what Chuzu said about Little Mary, but it so happens that it was right at the moment when Stitch Jones says, "Yeah, I've been always been meaning to come in and check out this place." Right behind Chuzu is a picture of Chesty Puller.
Yep. Yeah.
Like
Yeah. The only thing that looks like Chesty Puller on this planet was Chesty Puller.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is kinda neat that he's very Stitch Jones is very respectful to Little Mary. I mean, as much
Yeah.
shit as he talks, I mean, he's a nice guy, he's like a
Yeah,
good
he's
guy.
not a complete dirtbag.
No, I mean I mean, yeah, he's also like Chuzu too. He's quick-witted and has a sharp tongue, but he looks out for his fellow Marines.
Mhm.
He ultimately does the right thing, and he's just a respectful, good dude. They just don't want to do it Highway's way, like
Yeah.
that's the only thing is, they're young guys that don't want to be told what to do after being, on their own for so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's almost as if they all, well, especially Stitch, anyways, has the making of a fine Marine.
Yeah, he might end up, on the path. I guess we will see.
No, I'm gonna play it real quick so I can hear what he says. He said, "Look at all this history." It's hard to see. He said, "Little Mary served Marines." I think he said in 3 wars because Korean War doesn't make sense, even though it kind of sounds like that.
Yeah, maybe World War II.
Well, I think she's a little too young for that. I don't
Think
know.
so? She thinks she wouldn't have been in her teens?
You know what? She could have. She easily could have. Now that I think about it, she's clearly older than Clint Eastwood
Mhm.
and Chuzu, for that matter. We find out soon that her husband, for sure, was Tom Highway's and Chuzu's platoon sergeant
Yeah.
when they were in Heartbreak Ridge, when they were in the Korean War. So if that guy was probably in for a little while, and if you remember, the Korean War started, well, I think it started in like 40. No, Heartbreak Ridge was in like 1950, but I want to say that. All right, so Korean War started in 1950. So what? World War II ended 5 years earlier. It's very possible that her husband was in World War II.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
that would have made sense too because he would have been a platoon sergeant in the army. Yeah.
yeah, he could have been, he could have been, up and coming,
Yeah.
during World War II. But by the time Korea, so that's possible. And then of course you got the Vietnam War. I
Yep.
mean, I highly doubt they're counting any of the other little conflicts maybe picked up, along the way. So we'll go with that. Those three. It makes sense that that now did she own this bar this whole time? Maybe. Her and her
Maybe it was in her
husband.
family. Yeah.
Could be. Yeah, could be. And she just took it on. I always assumed it was her husband's bar, but actually it could have been her bar this whole time. And like you said, like in the real life bar that this is based on, it was a series of people who, like, as they retired, took it over, and then they sold it to somebody else who retired and took it over. That type of thing before it
Gotcha.
finally closed. So it's very possible that, yeah, I mean, like, maybe it was in the family. Maybe her and her husband started this and while he was off in war, and it gave her something to do, give something fulfilling. I always assumed it was something she did after his death as like a memorial honor, because she's clearly, she said the best years of her life were married to a Marine. She has an affection for the Marine Corps as well. So I always look at it as maybe this bar was post his death, and this is what she did with her life after he.
That does also kind of, well, so it does throw some rocks into the idea that these two were in the army beforehand.
Not necessarily, because we'll get to it. We're going to save it for next week. I think it's next week we'll have a discussion about that.
Okay.
I had some questions about that as well because of, but we'll get there. I'll just say let's just table that till next time.
Okay. I think I see where you're going. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. That'll be an interesting philosophical discussion.
Yeah, but that being said, I do wonder, and actually because of that, now this gives more credibility without telling, without showing my hand for the next couple weeks of this podcast. I think this actually gives more credibility of what I was just saying, that post his death, she started this bar. I'm wondering, but that doesn't mean he said Little Mary served, Marines. They could have always had this place. Maybe her dad was a Marine.
Yeah.
They don't get into this. Maybe she was a Marine at some point, who
Yeah, it's
knows?
possible. Yeah. She could have been a W.
Yeah, why not? I
I
mean,
don't think so, but it's possible.
I mean, the way they make zero mention of it in the movie.
Yeah.
She specifically says the best years of her life were married to a Marine, Panther piss, all that good stuff. So my
Hmm.
guess is she wasn't. But if we want to fill in the backstory, why not? Why couldn't she have been a WM in World War II? But I do think it's also possible because he said she's been serving Marines for 3 wars. Maybe she's just from there, and she's
Yeah.
always
A
been in
local.
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
and she could have always been in some, even if it wasn't this bar in particular, she could have always been doing something to help the Marine Corps, even if it's as simple as pouring a beer or a coffee for some Marines on their day off.
Yep.
And the way she has such an affection for the Corps, I'm sure she was doing far
God's
more.
work.
Yeah, yeah,
She was doing
exactly.
God's work.
Well, you're right, exactly. But I was saying, but even like volunteer work and stuff to help the Corps outside of this.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So oh, that's what he is. So, yeah, so while she's pouring the coffee, Jones is sampling it with his fingers and all that, but he goes, "Man, that highway's something else. High speed, low drag."
Yeah.
And he said, but Chuzu flat out says he's the
Ain't nobody better to have. Yeah.
nobody, yeah, nobody better to be with when you're in a hot LZ. Heartbreak Ridge, Little Mary says. That's why it's like a setup for going forward. He goes, "What's Heartbreak Ridge?" Jones
Yep.
asks. But we don't get the answer today. It's a
No.
cliffhanger on a nice Friday. We don't know what Heartbreak Ridge is besides what our BS that we came up with in the first few minutes of this movie.
Yeah.
The whole time they're having this conversation, there's a song playing by Jill Hollier, and it's a very noticeable. I forget the name of the song at this point, but it is one that I did. That was the one I was able to identify previously because it was like there was three Jill Hollier songs in this movie, but this was the only one that was like you could kind of identify, and I don't. I don't. Oh man, it's gonna be in my notes way back here. But anyways, I'll see if I can find it and post it in the Facebook listeners page
There
and
you
the
go.
quarter deck. Yeah, and I'll see. I'll. It won't be the same version, but she's saying this that the song that's playing to Clint Eastwood at a AFI or whatever honoring Clint Eastwood thing in the like late '80s, early '90s. So I'll go ahead and post that when I find it and put it in the listeners page. But it's like I said, just it's really noticeable while Chuzu and Little Mary and Jones are talking, and we cut to the exes kind of
Yeah.
having a little moment, and she's doing something now. Okay, so when you notice, I noticed this when he walked in. He's holding his nose. Tom Highway is right.
He probably got into a bar fight.
Yeah, I think he did. Because at first it's like, well, because when now we cut to Aggie, she's rubbing something on his under his his under his nose, kind of the side of his nose,
Probably
on his
some witch
lip.
hazel or something.
Yeah, that's exactly with like a not a Q-tip, but
Cotton
like a cotton
cotton
ball.
ball.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. Something happened. There definitely is like more to the story that we didn't get. We're just meant to make the assumption that yeah, he got in a fight.
Yeah.
So he wasn't arrested for being drunk. He was being arrested for disorderly.
Yeah. Again. Yeah.
So yeah, because he like we joked, he's like he he threw the beer like some sort of Kyle raging. He wasn't going to physically do any harm to her, but he found somebody to do some harm to.
Yeah. Yeah, he
So
took it out on somebody. Somebody got an ass whooping.
somebody probably pushed him too far, and he was like, "Not today's not the day, son." Yeah, so anyways, she says, like, "Look, before we move forward, we need to understand each other." And he's like, "Are we going forward?" And boom, that's it. We don't get the answer. So another
Yeah.
cliffhanger. What are we gonna do? I can't wait till Monday to find out.
Yeah.
I need closure, damn it. We've been through this, we've seen the ups and downs of their relationship so far. I need closure.
Yeah. Where's this going?
She walked up to him and said, I've been thinking.
Yeah.
Although, let's be honest though. Is now the best time to have this conversation with him?
It might be. It might
Yeah,
be.
maybe.
He might be susceptible to the calming influence of, the ex-wife. And
Little Mary did say Aggie will put them back together. She always said, or does she say that? She says that later. Never mind, spoiler. Anyways, or actually, maybe she did say it
she did
earlier.
say it. She goes, yeah, she goes, you'll put him together. It's she always does or always had.
Yeah, and we're seeing that the beginning of that right now because it's only the last like 10 seconds.
Right.
Oh yeah, because she said before we go any further, and he's like, "Are we going further?" And then that's boom, it's the end. So we don't know. But I was thinking, I'm like, I mean, he's more alert, of course, now,
Hmm.
but he's got to be feeling the effects of being that pissed drunk and probably even that rattled for maybe getting in a fight, because clearly he took a shot.
Oh yeah. Dude, yeah, it looked like he took a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm guessing because you know what, to give more credibility to your theory that Jones got in a little scuffle, there is yeah, you can see on the minute, or I always say minute. Geez, we're only doing 1 minute.
I know.
Second 37, you can see the red mark on the
Under his
side of
eye.
under
Yep.
his eye, but on the side that has the ripped earring. So he definitely got roughed up. He had his own little scuffle outside
Yeah.
that bar, which again that makes sense why he was thrown in jail, not for disrupting the place, but because what ensued afterwards, what occurred afterwards. So, do you got anything about this minute you want to discuss further? Anything stands out?
No, no, I think I'm looking forward to the next minute because I think that one's going to be a really good one to kind of break apart.
Yeah, I agree. I've been surprised at how some of these talkie scenes
Hmm. Yeah, I know, right?
they've been more fascinating than I thought. Like we had those minutes, that recently, just obviously a couple weeks ago now, but When Brad from Cosmic Geppetto was on, it was just most of it was just Chuzu and Gunny sitting at the bar talking, and their conversation was fascinating.
Yeah, when you really kind of start to think about it, I mean, it's like, this is a gunfight scene. Look, it's pretty good. Like, oh, look, he's not holding the rifle right, or oh, look, his this or this or this. Get your finger off the trigger. Now here, it's like, well, okay. There's some character development, some meat, some stuff to like really kind of because they said like I was kind of taken aback by this scene more than anything, just Jones's awe of the
Yeah,
history and like the respect, like that's
yeah.
it's and he didn't say it much. He didn't make a big deal about it. It was just like, hmm, okay, you know. So yeah, but no, I think we pretty much covered everything in this minute. I don't think there's really anything else for us to break apart.
I agree with you. So I guess we'll call it a night then, and
All
ask
right.
everybody, and we'll call it a Friday. So let's ask everybody to come back on Monday. Hopefully, get a little more history, get a history lesson. I think we're going to get a history lesson next Monday. But before that, we'll just ask that it's Friday. Ask everybody to go to moviesbyminutes.com, check out Star Wars Minute, and go ahead and take a look at some of the other movies by minute. See if there's anything you're interested in. There's so many of them, and there's a lot of good ones, and a lot of the hosts are very entertaining. We have our Marine Corps Movie Minute Facebook page. Marine Corps Movie Minute Quarter Deck is the private group if you want to join that. We are on Twitter at MCMM_podcast. I had to think about that. And we are Instagram at Marine Corps Movie Minute Pod. And then, of course, Marine Corps Movie Minute at gmail.com if anybody wants to send us an email. And we just want to say thanks to everybody for listening. We look forward to continuing to break down the movie, and just appreciate everybody listening. Perry, I think this podcast of ours we got going here is it's high speed, low drag. So, welcome back to the Marine Corps Movie Minute. Okay, let's start again. It's as good as it's gonna get.